Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye has friends. No, really, Jeff has friends. Jeff's friends are on this podcast. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship. Jeff Dye's friendship.
Friendship.
Welcome back to Jeff Dye's Friendship Podcast. Thanks for coming back. If you're listening on iTunes, we love you. Don't forget to rate and subscribe. If you are watching, you might have noticed the upgrade. We have done the studio a lot better, higher quality stuff. And if you're listening to me pitch this, go over to patreon.com, Patreon/Jeff Dye, and check out the new setup. It's a nice, beautiful way to watch the podcast now, so I hope you guys will subscribe. If you want to subscribe to that, like I said, it's patreon.com/Jeff Dye, and you can see the new upgrade in video. We're really proud of it. This week was so fun. Reconnecting with a guy that I haven't seen for a while. We talk about all that, but his name's Jamie Kilstein. Very, 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 very great guy. Went through some stuff, and now he's a better version of himself for sure. But I first met him in Seattle a long time ago, then in Montreal for New Faces, and he was it's just a totally different guy, but I even liked him back then. So I'm excited for you guys to meet my friend, Jamie Kilstein. I know you guys are going to love it. We appreciate you being here. I don't have a pro athlete that wore 60 that we like, so sorry. But week 60, let's do it. I am so excited. People, thank you for listening. I'm so excited to have our next guest. We met first in 2008. I am from Seattle, Washington, and I got asked to be in the Montreal Just for Laughs New Faces, which is very coveted. People still to this day, even though development deals don't really happen much anymore and stuff like that, people still want.
It was a huge especially
deal.
Where me and you were, like career-wise. You just, when you got Montreal, you're like, I guess I'm famous now.
Yep, absolutely.
This is it. No more work.
But to go from Seattle to that Montreal Just for Laughs and to get to work with all the people I got to work with, you're like king of Seattle. You were the Seattle guys. And even if you had never been to Seattle, it doesn't matter what your perception is. Trust me, you were doing what all the comics were trying to do as far as like you were very ahead of, you were like very alt. I don't know if alt's the right word. What would you call it? It
certainly isn't now. I don't know, fucking angry, and I like Bill Hicks.
Yeah,
it was that.
I mean, that's how like someone making fun of you would describe it. But like, I think it was smart. It was informed. It was liberal. It was it was unapologetic.
Yeah.
It was very, but it was also very. At the time, like nobody's talking about being a vegan, and nobody's talking about like you were kind of like a young blossoming Doug Stanhope in a way.
Aw.
Yeah, and so I was really flattered to meet you, and I was like, as a Seattle guy, I'm like the smiley guy talking about dogs.
Yeah,
and like
and
this
of course, I was
he's the king of my city.
And I was terrified to meet you, where I was like, you were being nice to me, and I'm like, this good-looking guy's setting me up for a trick. Like, he's gonna beat me up soon. And
Is he gonna invite me to a party and then everyone's gonna laugh? But it was so cool to meet you, and I remember really respecting you before I got to meet you, so it was pretty cool to get to know you, and here we are.
Dude,
later.
it's so nice of you. And I gotta say, like, I feel like that phase of my life, it was like twofold. Like I was trying to be ballsy on stage, but I was still like that insecure guy off stage where I would still gossip. I don't remember specifically, but like you and Eliza were in our class, our New Faces class, and you guys, I automatically didn't judge, but was just like, you guys won't like me. Right. You're like the likable comics who are hotter than me. And I just sort of was like we didn't really, I feel like we really became close when we saw each other recently.
Yeah, but also I do think, just to jump in real fast, one, I don't get along with Eliza, so I would never lump myself with her. But
great.
I do think that, I loathe her, but I think that the idea of sometimes things happen in our career where we remind ourselves, oh yeah, We're grown-ups. We're not in high school anymore. You have to remind yourself that comedy is in high school. It's really hard not to.
Dude, every girl issue I have, every self-hatred issue I have, every comedy, it's all, I can map it to where I was in high school.
Oh, that's interesting.
I'm like, I'm insecure about this girlfriend I'm with. Oh, because that girl cheated on me with like that older guy. Or, I'm like insecure of you because like I had the friend who was really good looking and like he got all the attention and I was like the funny sidekick.
Right.
Or whatever. But it's like, I'm 37 and that shit does not, like, I don't know if it's just stuff that happens when your like dick is grown. Like I just like, it's not going away.
Yeah.
At all.
Well, and also like, like the rules have changed. I mean, like, it's not like if I'm, like the cheerleader's not always the bitch. It's not a high school movie.
Right. Oh, dude, you know who's, the jocks. After years of being like, fuck sports, jocks can like kiss my ass. I'm like, wow, you guys really have good work ethic. And like, you're really,
teamwork.
You're kind and open. But yeah, total teamwork. Like when I stopped doing comedy for like a while, I just threw myself into like jujitsu and MMA and, all these guys and some of that, like you said, I was very liberal and a lot of them were conservative. A lot of them were apolitical. And it was like the first time, again, as a 37, I mean, I guess like from 28 till now, where I'm like, I have like male role models and I have people telling me to be tough.
It feels good to be fit. It feels good to be able to defend yourself.
Holy shit. Yeah. And but it's kind of like we were talking about off air when people like own their, like brag about their shortcomings. That's such an easy way to do it.
But that's high school too. It's like, that's just me, dude. I procrastinate. And you're like, let's work on that. Let's not find identity in it.
I like that the bad kid in your high school was just a procrastinator.
Well, no, but like 90% of the kids would brag about how like, I woke up this morning and did this homework.
Oh my God.
And you're like, but that's not...
I'm just a lazy guy. I'm like Calvin from Calvin and Hobbes.
That's just me, man. That's how I am. You're like, no, I don't really appreciate it.
Oh, wait,
also, let's not also confuse that those jocks that are cool that you like and you hang out, they might have been dicks in high school. They could have been. Yeah. Jocks that at a young age can also be dicks. Yeah. But that doesn't mean when you meet a New York Yankee at like a media event that he's that kid from high school. That,
Right. Well, and then conversely, and what I was turning into a while ago is the nerds get a little bit of power and you can, great power comes great responsibility, right? You can go two ways with that, where you can either be like, I'm going to help people and lift people up because I know what it was like to be bullied, or suddenly now you're on Twitter and that's your stadium. That's your fucking XFL.
Now how drunk you've gotten with power, nerds.
Yeah. But like we see that kind of happening with like cancel culture, right?
Yeah.
Where it's just like, Kevin Hart's like successful and he's fit and he's whatever. Fuck him. I'm going to find a tweet he wrote 10 years ago.
It's so awful.
Yeah.
What'd you think about that whole Kevin Hart? Like, do you have any tweets out there that would get you in trouble, or have you gone and
all of that? I mean, I've already like rock bottomed enough where I feel like if someone dug up a tweet of mine, I would just laugh at it now. But yeah, I mean, I used to be when after Rogan and I were great now, but like not the last time I went on a show, but there was one time before where I went on a show and we like argued about feminism because I was trying to get like my like woke points and all that stuff. And I felt like I kind of burned all the bridges in comedy, and then I just doubled down. Where
that's what I feel like DePaulo's doing right now.
All the right,
yes,
yeah, and I've seen other people do that.
Because I love DePaulo, and I find that most of his arguments are fantastic. But I'm watching some of the stuff that he's posting, and I'm like, I arguably want to unfollow this.
Yeah, and there was another comedian who like I feel like there's a bunch of people on the left who are kind of tired of the call out culture.
Yeah.
And some of them will stay, and this is, I think, where I am, stay very liberal, but call out when the left is being like stupid, right? But then a lot of them, and this also started to happen to me, will get like applause from the right. And that's where that fucking like Gollum, Lord of the Rings, like temptation is in, right? Like when I lost all, like most of my fans on the left, and, I went back on Rogan's and Stan Hopes and those guys, and I started to get a lot of really cool lefty fans, moderate fans or whatever, but I also got like a lot of conservative people, and I was broke. I lost everything. A lot of conservative people, a lot of like lit agents, like reaching out, kind of being like, hey, you should be the guy, the lefty who like becomes conservative. And like, there was a moment, man, where I was like,
Dennis Miller like got rich doing that.
Yeah. And I mean, I'm sleeping on a couch, and it's, you write the book that's like, why I left the left and the right was right, and you're a billionaire. And it's much harder to be like, hey, let's talk about nuance. Like that's not a sexy pitch. But I think it's much more important because I've seen other guys like that who they start off by being like, and this isn't to trash them. I fucking get it. They start off being like, I was liberal, but the left got a little too PC, and they start there, but then they start getting followers and they start getting accolades and they start getting the tribe again.
Soon enough they find,
so suddenly it's like, oh, now just because we're too PC, now you're suddenly like fucking anti-tax, pro-war, anti-abortion.
All that
like,
changed.
All that changed in like a month and like 100,000 Twitter followers. But like,
when you get annoyed, it changes a lot of your belief system, you know? Just by being annoyed.
Yeah. But yeah, the Kevin Hart thing I think is a bummer. I think that I wish that, again, going back to the athlete thing where you just want to be the best version of yourself, right? And you want to become the best person you can be. And by doing that, you need to look for positive things in life, in your life, and you need to build on that. And we live in a culture now where you log onto Twitter and your job is to look for the negative thing. Who are we burying? Who are we getting fired? Who tweeted that thing 10 years ago? Because then that makes you feel better about yourself, right? Yeah. That's what I was doing. I was so depressed, but every day I woke up and I'd be like, who is my team shitting on? And then I would find that person. I wouldn't read the article because I wouldn't have time. I'd just try to like make a funnier tweet. Make the funny tweet. And then I'd sit there refreshing to see if like a celebrity liked it or whatever. But I can say for me, at least, it's because I was depressed and I felt like I didn't have love in my real life. So I was seeking it out online.
Sure.
And the Kevin Hart thing's this great example where like, he's not homophobic. He's made jokes that people found offensive, but also now he's doing like so much good shit.
When he already learned the lesson without deleting the tweets. He learned the lesson 10 years ago, didn't delete the tweets, and you can't find a tweet where he said gay the way he used to, or called people the names that he was saying, or the F word the way that, fag.
Yeah.
And he didn't, he hasn't. Right. Because he learned that lesson the hard way.
Right.
But because
as you will
now
after this episode.
I say fag in my act. I have one where I drop it.
I feel like I saw it at the store that one night and it was great. Oh, I texted you about it. I did see it.
Because I'm doing it for someone calling someone that. I'm making fun of people who use that word. I'm not that brave when it comes to the N-word.
Person that is what's happening. And also if you want to play woke politics, it was a lot of smug white people going after a successful black guy.
Of course.
This is why everything can't be like based on identity, says like the white guy. But it's true where it was like, he does so much good for all these other communities. Now, look, if there's a gay kid who is a fan of Kevin Hart's and he goes, man, that sucked to see. Like, that's where it is important for Kevin Hart to be like, I was a different person, lay out that apology or whatever. Fuck, he could have done it at the Oscars. He could have made a good statement there, right? But the fact that we log on every day doing the opposite of that positive, looking for the positive. We log on Twitter every day to be like, who can we bury?
Sure.
And not just people who do, look, Trump announces, or Alabama recently, right? Like announces like that crazy abortion ban. Okay, that's different. If you can go on and be like, women will die, that's different than this guy's successful. He's hosting the Oscars. Let's fucking dig. Right. Not even for something he did recently. Yeah. Let's dig just so that we can bury someone who, by the way, we're going to forget about next week because we're on to burying the next person.
You'd have to work real hard to find what they found.
Yeah.
And somebody worked real hard to find
it. And people get a thrill. And especially on the left, our biggest, when I was doing that stuff, it wasn't like, oh, we found something about Dick Cheney. It was like, we found something about a Democrat. We found something about one of our own. It becomes this like kind of hipster politics. Right. We're like, oh, you hate Bush, where I hate the live version or whatever,
Yeah.
And so I think it sucks. It's like if people say horrible things or hateful things, they have the free speech to say it and you have the free speech to call them out on it.
Sure.
I absolutely believe that. But when you are spending your life and days digging to take other people down, it's like you kind of have to examine like what's going on in your life where you need to do that.
Well, I think that's like I recently went through a thing probably 4 months ago, maybe January, December-ish in my life, where I had to like just start being really honest with myself of like, what am I? What do I think? What do I believe? And not that I don't always think those things about myself or all the time, but I started to think, what do I believe in, and what am I believing in just so I can kind of have a community?
Right.
What do I say I believe in just so I can have a group? You know, like, because
This is when you started using the F word, I assume?
no, not
You're
at
like, you know
all.
what?
I'm saying it because it's here. It's real in here. No, but I think what I was thinking to myself is growing up in Seattle area.
Right.
I would say I believed things because all the people I loved believed those things.
Yeah.
I didn't question it for myself. I just go, yeah, all right, I believe what, you know, and that was at church for a long time.
I
And then
believe what the co-op guy
after
says.
church, I was going to liberal comedy clubs where all my comic friends were, you know, if you're bombing, just say you hate George Bush and that'll
Right.
get the crowd
Was
back.
that the Underground? Did you start at?
Underground and Giggles.
That
and,
was like I did like the open mic there when I was like 18.
Oh, really?
I like flew out to the West Coast because I'm like, if I have both West Coast and East Coast open mics on my resume, people will know I'm
he's
like
been all
legit.
over.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was. I'm so curious about that because it was actually so cathartic for me. All right, so I texted you after I saw your set at the store, and I haven't seen you since New Faces.
Right.
Because when I'm out of comedy, I'm like, I burn it to the ground. I don't watch specials. Like when I came back to comedy, I was like, I didn't know who Tom Segura was. I didn't watch like his rise, you know, like, so I was just in the dark. And your set was one of the first ones I saw, and it was, to me, so ballsy.
Thank you.
And it was really amazing because it had stuff that would have offended kind of my old super lefty friends, but it also, and then hearing you even today be like, Nick DiPaolo's gone far too right. Those two things don't mix because I still have my old world in my head where you say one joke that my old friends find offensive.
Yeah.
You're on Nick DiPaolo's team.
Right.
You're done.
Yeah, it's hard.
Yeah, you can't say something nuanced like Nick DiPaolo's a great joke writer, getting a little too right wing with me, then go on stage, have a liberal joke, but it uses the F. You know what I mean? Like that's too much crossover.
I have a joke that I say retarded fag, and it's a pro Jesus joke.
That's the joke. That is the joke. That was the one. Yeah. And I just watched it and I was like, this is like the greatest joke I've ever seen.
Thank you very much.
But it was also like I still had that like look around moment where like, can we say that?
Yeah.
And that's a fucking crazy thing to me because when you saw me performing, I am still kind of proud. That was before I feel like I was trying to pander to the left.
Okay.
And it was just how I felt. And I had a bunch of pro gay rights jokes, but I dropped the F-bomb. I think I have the N-word on my first CD.
Sure.
Again, an anti-racist joke about the N-word. And language wasn't an issue. But then the language became more important than the joke or than the purpose of the joke or the meaning of the joke.
Right.
And, you know, I think it's really good that language is evolving and that, we can't just like run around calling people like retarded N-words.
Right. I think it's good. We're being more sensitive. Yeah. Which is nice.
But at the same time, like if you have a fucking killer joke and your heart's in the right place and it uses a word like that, I mean, fuck, man. Like
we have access to nuance and what's the discretion. We should be able to look at it and go, oh, what's his intent, first of all? And second of all, what's the point he's making? Let's not get lost in the word. Let's not get lost. Let's look at what he's trying to say or do here.
Yeah.
I think that you fit in the same camp with Doug for me because not only were your jokes funny, but they were important as far as like they had a belief system and a meaning behind them to me.
Yeah.
Whereas my jokes at that time especially were more about like a funny thing a cat would do or like, you know, like
sure.
Because there's a place for that in comedy. We've talked about it on this podcast a zillion times that there's a place for both.
Oh yeah, you literally just said that sentence and I thought of my cat and I was like, it made me happy.
And audiences like it.
Of course.
And you can't be all that. And comedy couldn't all be that. Every comic can't be, but it can't all be the other thing either. We need some fluff because otherwise you're just going to be stressed out with Twitter and work and then go to a comedy club and it's all of that too.
Not to interview you on your podcast, but I'm so interested by this and we don't hang out as much as I would like is where did you land when it comes to one, like the beliefs coming from like Seattle to where you are now, but also where did you land between the fluff and the kind of harder jokes? Like what are you wrestling with now or where are you? Because I'm going through that right now.
Well, so I think the thing that I was saying earlier was about I started to find myself being an extremist leftist just for community.
Yeah.
Kind of like a flat earther. You know it's nonsense. The evidence doesn't hold up.
Yeah.
You're like scientists.
Wait a minute.
I think flat earthers are like modern day scientists at step one who have just scrapped all the science that's been done. The questions they're asking are good questions if this was 500 years ago and you haven't looked up any homework or anything like that.
Yeah.
So it's like, and they're also starting from the wrong end of science. They're starting from, they want this result and they're doing it backwards, which is not how science works.
They're like when you were 16 and like on your first date and you're like lying out and you're like, what if like there's a star where there's like two of us looking back at each other like right now?
Yeah.
And like it sounds like, oh,
prove me wrong. And you're like, what? What do you mean? And I think that that's kind of what I was doing in a way. Like I wasn't looking at any of the things. I just was saying, I want my friends to like me. I want Seattle to like me. I want these other comics to like me. So I would say I believed in things that I'm never going to have to deal with, Jamie.
Yeah.
You know how many transgender people I know? I've probably met 10. And I am probably pals with one who I find so annoying that I don't want to be his friend. And it has nothing to do with his cross-dressing or his transgenderness.
Yeah.
It's just a 24-hour he's offended by little kids coming up to him and being confused.
Right.
You can be mad at me for being a bigot if I were to be.
But talking
Or
to
you
like
could
an age-old and be like, didn't you read Jezebel?
Right.
It's like, no.
Yeah, right. And that's exactly what he posts on Facebook. This little boy came up to me, and it's like he's 6. He doesn't understand.
Also, by the way, if you want the little boy to like transgender people, don't yell at the little boy. Don't angrily Facebook about him. Like, explain what you are. Yeah, I mean...
So I was realizing with myself that I'm only saying that I like these things because it's never going to affect me.
Right.
And that's a really unfair way to live.
In the moment, did you know that? Because what I found was... Because, like, I've talked to Rogan about this, and people have asked me where they're like, it seems like you were in a cult. Where they're like... Did you know you were saying things you didn't really believe?
No.
And no, I neither. And on the left especially, you know, I'm still liberal at heart in the sense that I want everyone taken care of. I want equal rights, like very like baseline things. And when you're on the left and you're like, and someone tells you what you say is offensive, or, you know, I mean, I remember I called like a Republican an idiot, and someone wrote in and said that was ableist. I read some email once where a kid like lost all this weight because I got him into jiu-jitsu, and like this guy, his doctor said he was gonna die, and he had children. And I read this guy's email as this like triumphant, like, holy shit, this is amazing. And people said I was fat shaming. Like, I didn't say all you fatties do jiu-jitsu. I was like, this guy saved his life. That's amazing.
Yeah.
And there was stuff like that where in my head I was like, this is fucking crazy, but I can't say anything. But the basic principles, a lot of times when someone, especially because I'm a white guy and I dropped out of high school, so I got kind of like a dummy complex. When someone
We're the
was
same
like,
on that.
Okay, well, you dropped out?
Yeah, I didn't even.
Whoa.
Well, it's sort of like everyone else graduated, and I didn't get to graduate.
Wow.
They're like, you have to come back next year. I was like, I guess I'm just never coming back.
Exact same thing
I'm
happened.
gonna go with all these younger kids, and I'm like, I'm also gonna have to cheat off them to like figure this out.
I was like, I couldn't graduate this year. You want me to do another year?
It's not gonna work.
No.
I'll go to a community college and try to get a GED or something. You know,
I did the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And so I had that kind of complex. So when someone said that what I was saying was wrong or offensive or whatever,
like,
I just automatically
but
believed
I read
it.
this. It has to be real.
Yeah, and I'm just like, I guess I'm not good enough of a person. And so I would just kind of like quiet the voice and do it. But just like you, like, I think some people may think, like, at no point was I like calculated about it. I was like, I was too dumb and self-hating to be calculated. I thought it was the right thing.
I needed a group, and I wanted some
Everybody
people,
needs
and
that.
these are the people that were closer to me that I really loved.
Yeah.
And I didn't care if they were wrong. I didn't even question if they were wrong. I just wanted
Same,
that kind
same,
of community.
yeah.
And I will say, this, I'm going to use this because it's obviously a hypothetical, but it's so hypothetical that I'm going to even use a brother that I don't have. I don't have a brother.
Great.
So let's say, as a guy who's from Seattle, is very liberal and extremist liberal at one time, I would say I think a transgendered a guy that's born a man is now a woman, right? Like I would say that, and I would say it with great passion and conviction, and I would argue anyone who would say opposite.
Yeah, same.
Because I never had to deal with it. Now, let's say, hypothetically, my brother comes to Thanksgiving and he brings a transgendered, born male, now female woman to Thanksgiving, and he's holding her hand and they're kissing, and he's like, everyone, I want you to meet my girlfriend, you know?
You would beat the shit out
No,
of her.
I wouldn't.
No, I know.
Never in a million years. However, am I not going to gossip about that when they leave with my sisters?
Or like ask a question.
Am I not going to go, dude, wait, so does he still have a penis?
Right.
Is my brother blowing a guy and being like, this is a woman, guys.
Yeah.
I'm blowing my girlfriend, thank you.
Which,
I'm
by
not...
the way, you would be fine with.
Right.
But you still want to know.
Exactly.
And you shouldn't be...
So I'm asking myself, I'm so self-righteous and I'm so like, that's a woman.
Yeah.
And who cares about the biology of her genitals? And I was real proud of myself for feeling those feelings because I've been inundated with Los Angeles and Seattle.
Yeah.
And so I had to come to terms with that as far as like, what do I really think? And there's a horrible bit that got into tons of trouble from like 3 or 4 black comedians that were all doing the same bit about how like if they had a gay kid, you know, how they would hate having a gay son and how I'm not remember the comics.
I think that was the whole Tracy Morgan thing, right?
But Joe Coy said it. He had that bit too. Yeah, I think. And there was a lot of comedians that had this bit about if their son was gay, how mad they'd be. I think some of the comics said they'd kill their son. You know,
I think that was what Kevin. Isn't that what Kevin Hart got in trouble for?
Maybe.
Isn't that?
I don't
was
think
one of
so.
them that had a bit
I didn't know
like that?
Kevin Hart was. Maybe. But I guess here's the thing. That bit, as ignorant and violent and silly as it is, it does ask the question at its root. Are you just saying you're fine? Would you be fine with a gay son? That's really being fine with, you know, that's really being an equal person is saying like, oh yeah, I would be. Why wouldn't you? But it's only when it enters your life do you have to ask those questions. And I was trying to do that politically. I was trying to do it with my own self. Like, let's enter this into my own life. What do I really believe?
Yeah. So when, and I think the problem is like centrist nowadays, which is not a sexy word, and I don't consider myself a centrist, but I think what me and you are both kind of trying to figure out.
That's a half man, half horse, right?
That is, yeah. If my brother was dating a half man, half horse, is he sucking that horse's dick?
He can do what he wants, man.
No, is that horse top bot?
That's a horse.
That's
No.
different.
That's a
Born a horse. It's now a man.
Identifies as a horseman. But like, you can't. Like a lot of people in the center or who are still very liberal, if you stray or if you ask these questions, you're like automatically kicked out of the cool kids club.
Which sucks.
Or you're called like alt-right. Like I wrote this piece that kind of blew up because like Rogan and like a bunch of those guys like tweeted it about how I used to be this dickhead on Twitter. And it was after McCain died. And I'm like, I would have been the first person to like anyone mourning him, like his daughter mourning him, I would have been like, your fucking dad was a war criminal. Instead of like letting this poor girl mourn like her dead dad, right? So I wrote this piece about it. It was literally the tamest shit I've ever written in my life for an academic magazine. Quillette, the website I write it for, is known for being kind of like the intellectual dark web, like kind of having the Jordan Peterson types. And that's like, it's crap.
Who I love, by the way.
Yeah. And
on record. I love Jordan Peterson.
Yeah. And by the way, the first time I saw Jordan Peterson, I thought because of what I heard from the left, he was going to be a literal Nazi. When I was debating, like, do I sell out and become conservative? Like, and I was broke on the couch, I would like stayed up late one night and I'm like, I'm going to watch Jordan Peterson on Joe Rogan. And I guess I'm going to be a Nazi now. And like, I watched him. And he was like, make your bed. Like, stand with your shoulders back with confidence. And I was like, what the fuck? This guy is great. But here's the problem. If we start calling him alt-right, or if we start calling Quillette alt-right, then he starts to get lumped in with like actual racists. In like, for example, like the YouTube algorithm. So there aren't a lot of masculine role models on the left, right? So at 36, watching Jordan Peterson, should not be shocked by make your bed, take responsibility.
Absolutely.
But guess what? I was just like, fuck, man, I gotta start making my bed and taking responsibility. Like, I saw Jordan Peterson and it rocked my fucking world. The problem is there are lots of young men who don't have male role models. They feel like on the left, they're the bad guy always, right? And I'm not saying that men don't have it easier than women. And then they go on YouTube and they watch Jordan Peterson make the bed. And then YouTube says, hey, if you like Jordan Peterson make the bed, you'll love like Ben Shapiro kicks a trans lady in the face. And you're like, fuck, those are two different things.
It's the camp talk you're talking about earlier.
But it's the camp talk. So when I wrote that piece for Quillette, I had a bunch of my old friends, verified lefty journalists go, I guess Kilstein's alt-right now. Somebody wrote that I was transphobic.
It's crazy.
I don't mention trans people in the article. But because I guess Quillette has had articles that said like we shouldn't give like fucking hormone blockers to children, you're automatically by association alt-right, which by the way is bullshit because that means anyone who writes for the New York Times, like, did they support the Iraq War? Like, but now there's just this tribalized guilt by association where I think when you ask those questions about your brother, or when we ask these questions, it's not us trying to be like contrarian privileged dickheads. It's literally, I'm trying to be a better person and I'm trying to figure out what I believe.
Absolutely.
And that's it. And if you can't ask those questions, then guess what? People are going to shut up and they're going to go to like the dregs of the internet.
I
where
think
they're
what it is,
accepted.
and I'm doing a bit right now about this. I'm doing a bit about the N-word, but
Yeah.
I don't say the N-word once. But why I'm so fascinated with the subject and what we're talking about right here, I'll show you how it ties in, is that like the N-word is just a word, and we all have access to words, and about giving it power and who you use it for and how you use it. And if you're talking about it, can you say it? Or if it's in a song and it's fine this way, or if you take one letter out, still this group can sort of say it.
Yeah.
So why I'm fascinated with the subject is because it doesn't make any sense. There's no logic with the rules of the N-word, but we know the rules.
Right.
And so I can follow the rules.
Right.
Which is what I'm trying to do and make sense of with transgendered, feminism, masculinity, these kind of other subjects, is I could probably just follow the rules if I knew them. But there's so many double standards.
Yeah.
And to get to understand the rules, whether they're logic or not, I need to ask questions to learn them. And so to learn them, you got to ask the questions, but you're a bigot if you ask the questions sometimes. And sometimes people don't even have the answers. I'll be like, wait, so are we to never reference Bruce Jenner again? Like, when I'm talking about the runner, can I say Bruce? And I'm trying to ask this question. And my friends, because I'm a comedian and I'm like famously a dummy and, a silly guy, they're like, Jeff, don't. And I'm like, no, I really want. And they're like, don't, Jeff. And I'm like, I really want to know.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a facet. Those are the things I wrestle with, which makes great for comedy.
What's frustrating too, especially when it comes to the political climate we're in, it's like, you're right. Like, it's like these teams that you're on. It's like, why can't I feel one way about one subject matter? Maybe I'm a little more left-leaning on social issues, but can be more right-leaning on economic issues. Like, that doesn't exist anymore. It's like,
times,
it doesn't
it's too
exist.
dangerous.
It doesn't exist in social media.
So
the thing is that like the social media is such a phenomenon.
It's like you got to pick
And
your
I love
house like
social
it's
media.
Game
I
of
don't-
Thrones or something.
No, and I don't want to talk trash about social media. I think it's beautiful, and I really love the internet. I think it's fantastic when used correctly. But I do think sometimes you forget there are gay people who love guns. There are gay people who love Jesus. There are people who are there's a lot of some people fit in the other boxes, but not always. There's a lot of like in between.
Yeah, and I think those voices are really important. And so here's the problem with social media. I like social media too. I'm saying because I want to get your followers because you have a great following. No, but I love it too. But I also saw the damage it did to me personally when I like used it in that manner. And I will say that it's the loudest, most obnoxious voices that get amplified.
Yeah.
That's the problem. Like the community you've built is awesome. The community like that started on my new podcast. It's like there are 16-year-old gay punk kids and 50-year-old conservatives. It's not, when I told the podcast to my agent and I was like, hey, during Trump, you want to do a political podcast about nuance? And they're just like, no. But when you eventually whittle down and get those extreme voices out and you find that like, oh, conservatives and liberals are actually talking about this shit back and forth on my show. Like that's what I want. However, those voices get fucking buried.
Yeah.
And it's the loudest people on the left and the loudest people on the right. And they're the ones that get all of attention. And so we trick ourselves into thinking the majority of people feel that way. That's why I was afraid to start the podcast. And that's why I was literally like, do I have to become right wing?
Yeah.
And go the opposite way? And no, you don't. Like, the issues that are being screamed about on social media, minus Game of Thrones, like the political issues, when you go out
Well, they're
and
pretty
ask,
dumb too about this whole coffee cup thing. It's like drop it.
all of it.
Oh, and even
Just enjoy your favorite show.
and then not enjoing the last
The
season,
petition.
signing petitions.
I know,
It's crazy.
like, go write a television show yourself.
Yeah.
Go
Yeah.
do that. I wish there were more dragons and more fucking. But the thing is, like, if you accept that those extremes don't exist, and because I always thought every Republican was
Evil
a
and
Nazi
racist.
who wanted women to die.
Yeah.
And now that I've met so many conservatives and found out why they believe what they believe, and it's like, oh, you just want to take care of your family too. You just think different things. And the majority of conservatives who write into my show are like, by the way, like I don't give a shit about like gay, like I like gay people, and like they're not the cartoon characters that I thought they were.
It's really important. And I think that's why your podcast is going to be wildly successful, is that, and not to make it a Jesus thing, which I tend to do. I almost want to. The frog analogy that I've used on this podcast so many times that I almost
Well, I
want to
wanna hear
wait.
it.
I almost want to
Okay,
wait till
fair.
we unrecord just so my audience doesn't have to hear it again.
Yeah. Tell me
But
after.
but it's my whole thing is like love all the people. And if you love all those people, I don't hate racists. I don't hate racist people. I just think they're stupid and they need to know to not be racist. But I can't just hate them. Then they're never going to not be racist.
Well, and that's the thing.
You have to love those people and then say like, hey, the world is full of really great, the world, not America, the world is full of really beautiful, different people who have no harm.
And I think this is another problem with this tribalism and just screaming at each other is no one's going to want to change their minds.
Right.
So what I mean by that is when I used to just scream at Republicans, let's say about abortion, right? And I'm like, you want women to die. I don't want to hear your argument. You want women to die. And then they scream at me, you want babies to die.
Right.
I'm going to go, fuck you. I don't want babies to die. They're going to go, fuck you. I don't want my wife or my sister. Like I'm acting like they know no women in their life or that there aren't pro-life women.
Or they go home and just like, like some cartoon figure, like you said.
Exactly, right? And but now if we go, okay, so we have a disagreement. But why don't we start at how do we have fewer abortions? Now a lot of people on the left will be like, it's not about that. It's about don't care. Don't care because nothing's getting accomplished.
Absolutely.
How do we get fewer abortions? If I can talk to the conservatives who listen to my show and get them to agree that we need better access to contraception and better sex education, because if you look at statistics, places that teach abstinence only have higher teen pregnancy, have higher abortion, have higher anal sex, STDs, all that stuff. Now we're both kind of winning, right? And we found a common ground.
And the same goal.
Exact same goal. But those conversations aren't going to happen and they're going to double down.
Right.
So there are a lot of pro-life people who I've talked to, like journalists who are against that Alabama bill. They think that goes far too far.
Yeah.
And they're pro-life.
It's kind of like pronouns, like Jordan Peterson says. He's like, listen, I'm not saying, he goes, I use the correct pronouns. If a student came up to me and said, hey, I was born a man and I want you to call me a woman, he would.
Yeah.
He said it shouldn't be legislated. Right. It shouldn't be a law where if you don't do it, you can be punished or it's considered like a crime, like assault. Yeah. That's what he's saying.
And then the bar gets dropped so much where if we're calling him a transphobe, if we're saying a pro-choice person who wants to have a conversation with a pro-lifer, hates women, if we're saying that all religious people are bigots or all Republicans are Nazis.
Because no words should be against the law. In fact, the N-word would have been the first word we made illegal.
Right.
There's social consequences, and there should be social consequences if you're being a bigot towards transgender people. Yes. But there definitely shouldn't be legal action for not using a pronoun. And that was his only point.
And also, by the way,
and it made him famous, God bless. At least that works out.
Yeah, but I'm not gonna I would never drop the N-word in like a hateful way or whatever. But like, look how the black community has like made fucking art with it. Look how, you don't want to make anything illegal. But what I was going to say before is there are a lot of pro-life people who aren't going to defend or aren't going to speak out against the Alabama law because they're like, I'm being called a fucking woman killer, woman hater anyway. Right. And like, there are a lot of lefties who aren't going to speak up when they see opportunity for compromise, because if we're just screaming this extreme rhetoric at each other, at no point are you going to want to see the other side's point of view.
It's fascinating to say, like, don't put me in a box. I'll put me in a box. That's kind of what it is. It's like, I'm not as predictable as you think, but like then you behave the exact way that's super predictable.
That's really funny. That you should make a bit. That's really funny.
Well, I feel like what happens.
Yeah. No,
whereas like some people, I'll do like pro-gun jokes.
Yeah.
And so then I've seen it, like if it's early enough in my act, I'll watch people go, oh, he's on our side. Like you're like at Cap City in Austin.
Yeah.
Like half the audience is cowboys and half the audience is like hipsters who hate cowboys.
Yeah.
Because it's in Austin, but it's not in Austin.
It's
like
when you go to
tucked
see an
away.
Allman Brothers concert and it's like bikers and like deadheads.
So weird. Yeah. And so you'll do a bit and I'll do like a whole pro-gun thing and I'll watch half the crowd go, oh, I get where he stands. He's one of us,
Yeah.
And then the next bit will be of like pro-gay and like how, we need to, it's none of your business and people love who they love. And like, and then I watch those same cowboys just like scratching their heads like, wait, what the, we thought we knew.
They're just spinning their guns confused. But even, guns is the greatest show. Are you pro-gun?
People want it.
So even when I was as liberal as you could get, I had a rant called "Fuck the NRA," like all this stuff. There was still this part of me, like a boy part of me, that was like, I know for a fact that if someone was like, hey man, you want to go shoot a gun? I'd be like, the guns that go boom boom and kill bad guys? Like in a fucking...
Those are on the news.
Like in a heartbeat,
Yeah.
I would, right? But like that's another great example. We know, people on the left know, guns are never going to become illegal in our country.
That's the only reason I'm pro it is because it's too far.
So what we need to do is be talking to the
If I had a
sensible...
time machine, I wouldn't be pro gun. I would go get rid of guns. You know?
Yeah.
But
like if we're not talking to responsible gun owners, because I bet you fucking money that a lot of NRA members care the most about gun safety because every time, one, they know how to use it responsibly.
care about it more, yeah.
It's like fighting, right? Like they actually are like trained and they're training to use it. But also like they look bad every time there's a shooting. They're like, oh, this thing I love.
Yeah, they hate it.
Yeah, here comes the fucking outrage. So if anyone should be pro gun regulation, mental health treatment, or whatever, it's these gun owners. But they're not. It's just like the abortion thing. They're not going to do it if every time there's a school shooting, all your liberal friends are like, hey, so you glad all those kids died?
yeah,
It's
exactly.
like,
Which is so
no.
silly. Yeah, it doesn't do anything effective. Yeah, I found that to be like mostly true with like all of the gun stuff especially lives in this weird world where even like young liberals think just owning a gun is racist.
Well, that's what I'm saying.
You're like, what? Like, no, every culture has guns.
And also, like, we don't know what it's like.
Rappers love guns. Cops have guns. Hillbillies have guns.
Yeah.
Like, everyone's got guns in
know.
each culture, but you only hate those guns that the South has or that, like, you
Right.
know, that kind of thing.
Right. And, like, I mean, Killer Mike from Run the Jewels has talked about how he thinks, like, more, like, black people should, like, take up arms.
Yeah.
And, like...
Actually, Killer Mike's a great example. We should talk about this real quick. Do we ever talk about that on the trigger warning?
We've mentioned that show, but I don't know if we've talked about
He's like my
specific
historian for like these because
Oh,
he has
great.
It's because he has to edit it. He listens to them over and over,
Okay.
and sometimes I'll go into something. And he's like, "We've talked about that a billion times."
Yeah, every episode.
Yeah, mascots, animals, any kind of. That's my jam.
Have we talked about wrestling on this podcast?
Yeah.
A few times.
So, Killer Mike did an interesting thing on one of the episodes. Great show. You should see it. It's called
So
Trigger
good.
Warning.
So
Is that what it's called? So good. And I love Killer Mike. And I hope that if anybody tweets this or whatever, that he understands my intent is
Come
good.
on both of our podcasts, Killer
Yeah,
Mike.
my intent is good. I love your show, and I'm a huge fan of Killer Mike. And the show is why I'm a huge fan.
Yeah.
However, there was one part where he's talking to a very old person at an old folks' home in one of the later episodes, and she's, probably pretty conservative, and maybe, she's pre-civil rights movement, so this
Sure,
lady
sure.
might be a little racist as well. But she said that she believes that the school shootings and all the gun problems happen from black people, which is quite a statement.
Yeah.
Which obviously he's like, anytime there's a school shooting, it's always it's always a white kid.
Yeah.
And the lady's like, well, I disagree. And he's like, okay,
I
which is
love that.
fascinating. But also,
Have you ever looked at the stars?
he's disagreeing with himself in that argument.
Okay.
Because one of his things is that the only time we hear about tragedies in the news is when it is a white person,
Sure.
right? So that's one of his stances, which directly conflicts with the stance that shootings only happen in white schools. When I was young, I remember talking to kids that went to different schools on chat rooms and stuff. They had in the urban schools, they had actual metal detectors because
Right.
guns going to those schools was such a problem. And this is long before Columbine, long
Yeah.
before school shootings. So guns going to schools from kids was in black communities,
Yeah.
always. He's referring to the ones that we see on the news.
Oh, that's interesting.
So he's disagreeing with himself.
Well, I wonder if what he meant was, because your logic makes sense, but I wonder if also what he could have meant is like, I wonder if
Machine guns or these
Yeah,
kind of
these mass-
spraying.
the mass shootings.
planned massacres versus black kid beefing with another black kid takes a gun to
Specific
like put in
target.
that guy's face, as
But that's
opposed to
also
like
a gross.
the
not
fact
gross,
that
but
I use
that is a-
beefing when talking about black people. I'm like, I
no,
said
but I
that,
mean
I was
that's
like, what's happening?
that's kind of a broad stroke.
Right.
I imagine they had to put those gun detectors for a reason.
Sure.
There probably could have been some big school shootings if they didn't go through these situations to stop them.
Sure.
But it was obviously such a problem that they had to go through precautionary methods of making sure people stop bringing guns to school.
Yeah.
And I never knew about that. I've never heard of schools with metal detectors. I thought these kids were like lying on these AOL chat rooms. I was
Right,
like,
right,
yeah, right.
They were
But
just trying to like seem tough. Yeah, we got metal detectors, then I fucked a girl at camp in
yeah, I
Pennsylvania.
fingered a girl yesterday.
My girlfriend lives in Canada, I swear.
Yeah. You don't know my girlfriend. She goes to a different comedy club than you. But anyways, I saw there was the one time that I was like, well, this is weird. He can't act like guns aren't a problem also in the black community,
Right.
especially
So
with young people.
So where are you now? Where are you now? Sort of politically, and did it sort of radically change your comedy? Or like, do you think about it? Because sometimes I actually just had this amazing conversation with, do you remember Paul Provenza? He made the Aristocrats. He gave me my first TV appearance on that Green Room show.
Oh, nice.
And I'm leaving Los Angeles, and I was originally going to leave Los Angeles. I met a girl. We fell in love. We wanted to get out of the city.
And Arizona's the best state in America.
I'm so fucking excited.
I love Arizona. You're going to love it.
We had never been there, by the way.
Yeah.
And we just randomly found a city, and we're like, this looks great. And we
you
went
know what
and
you're
visited.
going to come into contact with? I'll probably hang out with you more in Arizona than in California.
Great.
Yeah, I'll bug you all the time.
Awesome.
I'm always in Arizona.
Really?
Yeah, always.
That's incredible.
I love the baseball. They have spring training.
Yeah.
I have a ton of friends there. There's the Arizona Diamondbacks, which is the big team, and then there's also 20 million comedy clubs there.
What up until before I came here, which is another reason I'm so glad we got to hang out. I was just gonna quit comedy again.
Yeah.
Because I was like, it's not really happening for me. I'll get on, the occasional comedy store or whatever. And but I still I have all this fear, and I still feel like a fucking outcast. And I was just
shouldn't, man.
And then Provenza texted me. So I did another podcast in the Valley, and I was just killing time in between. And he texted me from out of nowhere. And he was like, dude, are you alive? And he lives in the Valley. And I was like, can I come over? And Andy Andrus, Stanhope's buddy, that crazy edgy comic, was there. And, I kind of told Paul, I was like, yeah, I'm moving to Arizona. I think I'm going to stop comedy. And he was like, dude, this could be the best thing for you.
Yeah.
Where you can go back to doing comedy, not thinking about who's in the audience or how it's going to propel your career, or if your agent's going to be there, or if someone, but you can just do it in the middle of the fucking desert just for laughs again. Do you remember when we were comics and the thing you were the most excited about was is the new joke going to work?
That's how I still think.
Yeah. Well, and that's I felt that way at the best parts of my career, where when I took the biggest risk, didn't care. And what Paul said, he was just having fun. And then there was just so much fucking drama. And even now when I'm writing jokes that I'm like, this one's a little more conservative. So are they going to think I'm doing the flip?
Yeah, you can't do that.
But no. And it's fucking insane.
Just be Jamie.
As opposed to just what's funny or whatever. But there's something about having a fresh start where I was like, my friend wrote me and he was like, hey, I can introduce you to a bunch of comedy people in Arizona. And I was like, fuck that. I'm not doing it anymore. And then literally today, right before I came here, Paul was like, just start again in Arizona. And there is something my heart started racing, where I was like, it reminded me of probably how you felt in Seattle, how I felt in Jersey, where I'm like, oh yeah, I can just do shows again for people who aren't jaded.
It can be fun again.
Yeah. Just on a Tuesday night in front of 30 people who want to see comedy.
Of an idea, you're sure the idea is good, and it bombs, and you go, okay, I'll just retool it, and it bombs.
Yeah.
Or not bombs, but just doesn't do well.
Yeah.
But then when you can finally get them to start, and you go, I knew that this was a funny, I'm working on this bit. I've been working on it probably for 10 years, the idea.
Yeah.
But now, and where I'm at now, I'm able to figure it out better. But the idea is that I ask the audience, or I present it in a way where I'm like, is it okay to hire based on race? Is it okay? And everyone, of course, no, you should never do that. And I was like, well, what if I only want a white guy for this job? Is that okay? And they're like, no, you can't do that. And I was like, but think about, I went to therapy when I lived in New York, and the therapist they gave me was a black woman. I can't complain about my problems to I can't be like, oh, the other day I want to go to San Diego and my Tesla wasn't charged. She's just going to be like, these are the, problems that, and so I worked it, and one of my favorite guys in the world, his name's John Brutton, great comic in Ohio. Look him up. Bruton is technically how you say it, but he was like, it's funny, I watched that joke do bad so many times. And he goes, but now you're figuring it out. You're like, I'm watching that work. And he's a black guy, so he was triggered when he first heard it. You know? But he's like, it's fun to watch that you're actually making that joke work now.
Yeah, dude. And I always, in every interview I gave, I always talked so much shit about how it's all about the creative process and this. And I haven't had a conversation like this about a joke like that in such a long time. And it feels so cathartic because I never thought I would be that guy. And it's not like I turned into it because I wanted to make more money. I lost all that magic because of fear. Just straight up because of fear, because
which is the devil.
Yeah, and it got to a point
I think
where I'm
fear
like,
is the worst thing in the world.
dude, and some people, like Jordan, you look at Jordan Peterson, people talk shit about that guy, makes him stronger.
Yeah.
And I never had that.
Which is a big problem, and not to make it political, but that the young people and the left are very guilty of at times, is like these safe rooms and these safe places and these things.
Yeah.
Like, why would you want to be safe?
No.
What world do you want to be safe?
You want to build up your resilience so you get strong enough to be able to like kick the shit out of those ideas.
Exactly. There's
you know?
nothing good about being safe. I mean, like, it feels nice if you're sleeping and you say, you'll need some shelter or something like that.
Sure.
But as far as the actual sense of like, oh, my ears can't hear those words. You're like, that's how we treat children. That's
dude, the greatest things that I've done in my life, some of my best decisions were dropping out of high school, were when I lived out of my fucking car. Like, these are the things that led to my success, were my downfalls. And if we're protecting kids from adventure or from fucking up or from exploring or, look, my kid says the wrong thing, he gets punched in the face. He ain't saying that anymore.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, well, think about it. And whatever you believe in, the Tao, God, the source, whoever you believe made this thing that we're living on, or maybe just in nature, there's the ocean, which is beautiful. There's the beach that's beautiful, and there's the skies that are beautiful. And whatever you believe in, put sharks in it, wild animals in it, and freaking birds with beaks in the like. Adventure is what we're seeking.
Yeah.
There's no risk if you're just swimming around in the the world is filled with danger. That's what makes it good.
Yeah, and that's also like, that's how you become stronger, that's how you become resilient.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's why people fight. That's why people, like, you have to make those mistakes.
Absolutely.
And you have to challenge yourself and push yourself. And when you don't, and when you become complacent, that's when you look for drama, because you're not giving yourself any challenges. And when you look for drama, you're fucking on Kevin Hart's Twitter, digging 10 years.
When's the last time you like bombed on stage?
So I've only been doing it like very sporadically.
Since
I've
remember
been
like back in the day when you were
I remember
doing
like
the
my worst bombs.
Well, here's the thing. That next show after you bomb, the best show.
The best.
Because you just like now you're a little needy.
Yeah.
And you're a little like no, I'm gonna get this.
Yeah.
Every time I've ever bombed, the next set after it, like there's been times where like I bombed and then my girlfriend at the time was like, oh great, he's gonna be a grump all night. Because I take it to heart. Like it's personal for me. Because I just at the end of the day, a lot of comedians just want acceptance. At least I do. Like I want to be heard. I want to fit in. So when I don't get heard or I feel misrepresented, I'm like, shit, that's not what I was trying to do.
Right.
So then that next set, I care like a lot.
And that's what I have to get back to, because I had that and I had all of this for a really long time. And then I think I went through so much shit that now I just put so much pressure on myself for even the littlest sets.
I wasn't even aware of a lot of that stuff. I was just so happy to see you when I saw you at the store. I was like, I've always loved this guy.
Yeah.
And and it's like, prepping to do this. And then when I came back home with Becky, I was like, dude, I haven't seen that guy in a long time. And I loved that guy.
Yeah.
I never knew where I stood where the other side of that relationship was, but I always really looked up to that guy and loved that guy. So cool to see him tonight. And so then that made me start looking online and like, watching Joe Rogan and stuff. And I was like, oh, wow, he went through some stuff, like some trials and tribulations. It's beautiful to reconnect, and obviously I want to continue to do that. But also, it's cool to watch the up.
Yeah, and like I said, man, like you have those moments in your life where you're like, well, I either fucking kill myself or try to become like the best version of myself possible.
It's great.
And again, it goes with those challenges and like really pushing yourself where you can always come out the other side better.
Absolutely.
But if you're just gonna fucking brag and accept just like your shitty downfalls, then that's why like guys like Peterson are really important. And I wish there were more people like that on the fucking
Which is
left.
my least favorite part about stand-up comics. And I love comics because that's my group, right? That's our group.
Yeah.
But I don't need to hear more bits about like I was buying a car the other day, and the guy said, "Oh, it gets this much mileage, and it's very spacious, and it has a deep trunk. Listen, can I cry in it or not? You know, like
Right.
this like pro depression,
Yeah.
pro like I'm grumpy stuff. I've never wanted to be that, and I also
Yeah.
don't enjoy
Look,
watching.
can I
it.
drive it home and run over my gay son with it or not? I'm so glad you said that, because when I started doing like MMA and jiu-jitsu full time, like not only did I feel like I was getting those like masculine role models, but I think that's another reason I haven't fully jumped back into comedy, because when I got back into comedy, like after I did Rogan's and I was like, all right, here we go, like getting back into it. Within 2 weeks, dude, I was drinking more than I've ever drank.
Yeah.
I was smoking pot again. I was eating shitty. At one point, I literally said to myself in a calculated way, do I go back to being depressed? Because whenever I tweet my depression jokes, fucking kill it.
Yeah.
Whenever I tweet like, hey, I really like John Wick, like no one gives a fuck, right?
Negativity sells, man, and everyone's buying.
And like same with like, look, I'll talk about my depression and like being suicidal if it helps people.
Mm-hmm.
And I will. And I'll talk about that shit on the podcast. But I don't want to get back to that place where I loved walking into. I feel like if I walked into like a room full of comics with like a self-help book, they'd just be like, yeah, gay. But like I loved going with a bunch of fighters where it's like, yo, these dudes are saying like positive affirmations before they go to bed. And you can make fun of them, but they're beating the shit out of people.
Yeah, absolutely.
And like I want to go back to comedy without falling into those pitfalls, and like not being that fucking guy. Like I want to go back and be
even when I
positive.
wasn't a good comedian, I think what club owners liked about me and audiences responded to was friendliness or likability or kindness. I think any success I've had, any dollar that's ever gone in my wallet is because people go, that guy wants to be my friend, and that guy does care about me, or that guy does have an intent to make me feel good, which makes me want to make him, there's that kind of like love just naturally. But you said an interesting thing that I want to tap on before we leave here. You said like fear and all those, not fear, but that there's that place of fear and wanting to try something and all the different stuff is what the best stuff always comes on the other end. Yeah. When I saw you at the Comedy Store, you said you started pro wrestling. Yeah. Which is, I'm so jealous. I would love to go to like a pro wrestling class or like do that kind of stuff.
You should do it. I will give you the information and you can do it.
And it's super fun, right?
The best.
Yeah. And you said you were like elated. You did like this thing and you gave like this guy like a hug because he helped you kind of do it. Oh my God.
Yeah. It was that day I saw you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was the first day. Well, first of all, for anyone who's like, dude, it's fucking fake. I've been fighting professional fighters for like 12 years. Never had a serious injury. Could barely walk for the last 4 months because I had to do like a tiger roll over the top rope like a million times and just fucked my hips beyond repair. Yeah. Everything about it hurts. But it was so interesting where all of these little fears I had, like I've been deathly afraid of heights. I have like a bit on my album, I think my last album, about trying to go on the high dive I was afraid of as a kid, and going there as an adult and being like, oh, this is great, I'll conquer this thing. And I got like paralyzed up there.
More afraid.
And I couldn't move. Like everyone around the pool, like I couldn't climb down. Like, it was this crazy thing. So like that's the level, right?
It was a wake paralysis.
Yeah, it was so horrible. And so I go to do wrestling, and there is something about like, whenever I'm giving someone advice on like how to quit something, like quit a bad habit, I always say you have to replace it with something you love. So like I never went to AA to stop drinking. Because for me, and it helps a lot of people, but for me, it made me feel more broken and kind of more like a piece of shit. So what I did was I upped fighting. I like used my addictive personality for something else. Because I'm like, I love fighting and I love becoming a better fighter, and I can't do that drunk and I can't do that hungover. So instead of every night being like, man, I wish I could drink, every night I go, man, I fucked that guy up today. Or man, I'm going to try this new move tomorrow or whatever. That's the place I want to get to with comedy now that I'm not drinking when I go back to it in Arizona, right? And so you have to replace it with something positive. And I've always been afraid of acting. Like I've loved stand-up, but I've never been a good actor. And I would do the thing we were making fun of. I'd be like, I'm just not the actor guy, right? And I would shit on that. And then heights, obviously. But I love wrestling.
Yeah, it's fun.
And it was so crazy to me that these two things that I was embarrassed of or afraid of, no questions asked. Like, I mean, when I got on the top rope for the first time, I was like shaking and they were like, flip off it. And like, I did.
Onto the canvas, or was there like a pad?
There was a pad first, and then they take the pad away. And then there was a person. So you have to like get your back to, But yeah, that day was the first day I went from in the ring all the way out.
Oh, nice.
And that I had like 5 seconds of that paralysis.
Yeah.
And I was like at the high dive again. So dude was outside the ring, like way down, and you launch yourself into like a crossbody over the top and then fall onto him. And it was this moment where...
And you hope they have the natural gift of catching you.
Yeah. And it was this moment where no one was there first because I was the new guy. And so I don't think anyone was excited for me to like fucking do it wrong or
maybe
headbutt
put your
someone.
Knees up.
Yeah. And the fucking big dude who, when I first showed up, looked like the scariest guy that was going to be there, was like, I got you, bro. And there was such this friendship moment. And I remember I did it and like almost started crying. And I had to like take him aside and be like, you have no idea.
Yeah, but it's nice. That's exactly those are the moments that we live for. You know?
Yeah, man. And those are like what I love about pro wrestling is, so I showed up to Brian Kendrick's class and I accidentally showed up to his pro class. And that's what this class was.
Oh, yeah.
And all of those guys helped me immediately just because like I knew enough from jiu-jitsu where I'm like, I know how my body works. Sure. And then comedy, I can like act a little bit. And all those guys looked like these like perfect in shape, hot specimens. And I was really intimidated. And then class starts and one person goes in, does forward rolls around the ring, and suddenly like everyone started clapping.
Oh, nice.
And it was this beautiful moment where I'm like, oh, this is like the best of comedy and the best of fighting.
Sure.
Where it's like, you're just a bunch of like jacked theater nerds who take care of their bodies.
100%.
And it was like incredible to watch. And it's like, those are the kind of people I want to be around. I want to be around funny, ballsy, creative people who also, don't need to be like, we're getting fucking wasted or drag other people out. That's the thing. If you want to drink moderately, if you want to do that stuff, cool. But I think what you're talking about in comedy with the depression, or what I'm talking about with the drinking, is the people who need you to do it with them to validate their shitty decisions.
When they manifest their own bad qualities, kind of like what we started with too. We're like, it's like they don't want to be fat. Let's use fat for an example. However, all night they're getting hundreds of people to laugh at them and being fat. And at the end of the day, they're thinking that was a goal accomplished because I made them all laugh.
Right.
But you're reaffirming over and over to yourself verbally and with feedback that I'm fat.
And that's what I would do.
Who would sleep with me? I look like blank. And now the crowd's gone, yeah, no one would sleep with him. He looks like blank. And your goal was getting a laugh. But at the end of the night, you kind of just sip your whiskey and go, I'm a fat piece of shit that no one wants to have sex with. And how does your brain not start to believe that?
And then the way you keep going is then you feel terrible about yourself. So you have to refeed that the next night on stage. And the only way you do that is by doing the fat guy joke that fucking kills. And then that becomes your thing. And this image of like the tortured artist is so harmful. Where like there are so many people who are like, yeah, I'm a writer. And you're like, cool, what did you write? They're like, well, I mean, I'm an alcoholic like Hemingway. And you're like, no. That's not writing, but like I've done that where I literally go back to comedy. I'm like, do I start smoking cigarettes again? And it's like, what the fuck? I haven't smoked since I was like 22. But like I associated with that sort of like bad boy delinquent, like, oh, I write because I hate myself. It's like, or you could just write because you like
Jay
writing.
Whitecotton and you. Do you know Jay Whitecotton?
No.
One of my favorite humans. You guys would be very good friends. But
I'll find him after.
So evolved in that like line of thinking. He's like, Jeff, you drink because after the show you want to be friends with those people. Like that's just your way to be friends with these people. And he was like there was like an old like Catholic guy, two really heavyset Mexican girls, like these young like bombshell college age girls. The bartender of the club came out. The owner of the club came, which he never comes out. He was like, I couldn't believe the group that was around you because you just want to be friends with everyone. And he's like, you're using alcohol as that vehicle. It's not like, oh, I have to do this because tonight was, Yeah.
And like I used to do it in a more negative way where I would be like, I can only talk to people if I have my like ADD distraction or whatever. And then the first night I went out there with just a bottle of water,
same thing.
I was like, oh, yeah, it was just again, like a story I was telling myself about who I am. And you can rewrite those fucking stories.
Absolutely. I think that is it in a nutshell.
Yeah.
I think that you can rewrite those stories you tell yourself. Dude, thank you so much for being here.
This was so great.
Yeah, I love you. You're
next
the
time we'll
best.
talk about wrestling.
Yeah.
I'm so excited. Okay.
Our fans are happy we didn't, trust
Yeah,
me.
they get,
are they? Okay,
they get
good.
enough of that.
Oh,
yeah.
good. I know when I talk about UFC, and I know like one of my listeners probably watches UFC, and I'm like, I gotta talk about this.
Well, they want to know you. That's what this is. It's a friendship podcast. They want to know Jamie.
I'm excited to meet them.
We can talk
on
about
the
wrestling
internet.
off the pod. Do you have anything you want to plug?
Yes. So the thing I'm the most passionate about is the podcast. I've made it short, so it's daily, but it's only 20 minutes, and it's going after the people who are douchebags on the left and the right, and then we have people from both sides and guests from both sides
Cool.
write in without trying to like berate each other, and it's fucking great.
I love that.
And the community we're building is really cool. So that's called the Jamie Kilstein podcast. There's a website which is just jamiekilsteinpodcast.com, which has like the iTunes, Stitcher, Spotify links, but you can get that all for free. Twitter at Jamie Kilstein, Instagram at the Jamie Kilstein.
Perfect.
And
Tone
that's it.
Bear, you want to promote anything?
Just follow me on Twitter and Instagram at I am Tony Reavis. You can see what I'm up to.
Yeah, games and rap and laughs. You're
Yeah.
my guy. I don't know where I'm going to be, so go to jeffdye.com and check out my calendar. Throwing in a lot more first pitches in the next couple months, which I'm excited
Yes.
about. And then there'll be a lot of comedy club dates on there, some corporate gigs, but those are all private. But find it at jeffdye.com. We love you guys. I hope you enjoyed meeting our friend as much as we enjoyed having him.
Yay.
Friendship.
How about that? A good ass episode with Jamie Kilstein and Tony, the Mad Dog Reavis. We had fun making it. We hope you guys enjoyed it. I hope you guys will reach out to Jamie Kilstein, listen to his podcast, maybe follow him on the tweets. If you're watching on Patreon, thank you so much. We love you guys, and the money is going to good use. We're giving you upgraded video now because, enough money has been made that we can upgrade this little shots for you. If you'd like to be a Patreon subscriber, please do. Go to patreon.com/JeffDye. For $10 a month, you get to watch every episode of the podcast. You get to watch it first. You get to hear it. And then also, there's free comedy club tickets for life to any one of my stand-up comedy shows. What else? If you're listening on iTunes, thank you. If you want to listen for free, it's on iTunes. Just go to iTunes. Put in Jeff Dye's Friendship. We love you guys. See you next week.